The last time I was here, actually, it was my mum who was up here speaking, so it was quite a momentous, and I always remember going throughout my childhood to various different conferences where my mum would speak, and even though I was her child and I knew every myth about her, she used to really, truly galvanise me. And because really, in terms of what she was saying, always to me as a businesswoman that I have accidentally become, because I can have to say, as a businesswoman, I'm a bit of a fraud. I never wanted to get into business. And I can tell you, being brought up in retail, I never, ever wanted to go into retail. It was an absolute nightmare. And really, the fraudulent bit was I didn't even realise I was opening up a shop until the day it opened. And because ultimately what I wanted to do, and this is what my mum really taught me, and I have to say both of my parents have been my business mentors, was that really, truly it has to be passion-led and message-led. And if you have that, then you have got the key to success, right? So when I opened up Coco De Mer, which is a really extraordinary and beautiful erotic emporium, I wanted really to create a platform to communicate a message. And that message was to transform our cultural understanding around sexuality and erotica. Essentially, I wanted to create an alternative to the sex industry, taking it away from something that I felt was really actually without humanity. And I wanted to create this platform. And the only way, at first, I kind of considered, when I conceived the idea, I actually thought I was actually being really cheeky and naughty, because my whole childhood and growing up was always, I always had a shock element and a sense of naughtiness. And I really tested the boundaries. I truly believe when you have an idea that you love it, that you don't keep it close to your chest, that you tell everybody you know about it. And that's the first kind of key to doing true, genuine market research, is you watch people's reaction. And I do believe that a great seed to an idea has to be followed by blind belief. So when I would actually say to my friends, hey, guess what? I want to open up a sex shop. Like, nobody had really done it before. There'd been no platform at all for a high-end female-run sex shop that really looked at transforming people's understanding around sexuality. There had been a group of sex shops opened up in America, like in the 1970s, called Good Vibrations, and also one shop in Hoxton called Shush. But really what they did was kind of curate everything that already existed within the sex industry, in terms of vibrators that really cost like £7.99, that were made from plastics that hadn't been really have any safety and health regulations around them. So essentially, because sex toys are considered as novelty items, which means not intended to use, the majority of the sex toys, when I opened up my shop, were actually pretty much dangerous to the body, without any communication of the hazards that they can actually cause you. So when I actually learned all of this, what I wanted to do was create this new platform. And when people looked at me, the first reaction, half my female friends said, was, I want to do it with you. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to really have to do this. And so I was like, wow, okay, let's do it then. And so in a sense, I kind of accidentally got into this kind of business by grouping this idea together. I got all my friends around. I did a lot of different market research. We talked about what we would like in terms of what reflected our own sexuality. We talked about the products. We talked about what we felt sex and sexuality was for us, what was missing, what we desired, what wasn't really reflected back to us. And then I started kind of creating a whole smorgasbord of ideas that propelled me forward. The interesting thing is what I realised around a good idea, a great idea matched with brilliant enthusiasm becomes contagious like a virus and a disease. And before you know it, everybody comes knocking at your door. This is my experience. I had incredible experiences of of people like Saatchi and Saatchi finding out that, like a whisper campaign, that this is what I was doing. And they actually phoned me up. This was even before I'd had a location or even created mood boards around the subject. And they basically asked me in and asked me about what the idea was. Then I created my mood boards and said, this is what I wanted to create. At that point, they then said, well, what can we do for you? And I said, I don't know. You tell me. You brought me into the meeting. And then essentially they came up with a very large free campaign for me. Because what I have learned is if you've got a cutting-edge idea and you're a cutting-edge creative, essentially other people want to get in on it because they gain awards, which I had no idea. The other aspect around coming up with creative, which I mean, I have to say, I had no corporate or professional experience before I opened up my company. And I have made every major mistake you could possibly make. Not only that, I had no desire to make money. So this was an incredible hurdle to kind of get over. I had started out as an activist, and my reasons for getting into Coco De Mer were reasons of activation, and reasons of education, and reasons of my own personal spiritual beliefs. That essentially I do truly believe that if we are more of a sexually satisfied culture, then war will be less necessary, right? And I do believe that actually pure and utter pleasure, and that pleasure is mixed with boundary and understanding, and pleasure, true ultimate pleasure, can only be gained by one single rule, right? And that single rule is quite basic. That is the rule of consent. Now, in terms of our sexual culture, because I have to say that Coco De Mer, when it opened, we propelled a great sense of media interest, and also we opened up the dialogue. And what was very interesting in terms of about the media attention that I got was actually the media were not interested in the deeper issues that I wanted to talk about. They were interested in the functions around sex and sexuality, and how society now has more liberated sexual women than before, like 10 years ago. And what I wanted to talk about was essentially that really the foundations of healthy sex all has to be with the conversation of what is consent and how do we gain consent. And that really ultimately is about understanding boundaries. And it was a very, very unsexy subject. You know, in terms of my own experience of opening up a shop what I had gained, most of the experiences that I had gained in running a business was by the fact that I was brought up in a business. And beyond that, I had no experience beyond the age of 16. My mum made me work from the age of 8 till 16. I had to dodge every single body shop on the high street, else I'd get called in and I'd have to work in the shop. I didn't realise how much I loved my customers until I opened up my shop, and I didn't realise how much it was my platform and how informative my customers were to me, to my products, to the very essential aspect of my company until I opened up my shop. I didn't know what a spreadsheet was. I didn't know what profit and loss was. I had no idea how to cash up. I had no idea how to count inventory or even to order it or even to calculate how to order it. And I up. And I certainly felt I really did not want to be a boss. Right? That, I have to say, being a boss and learning on how to be a boss was one of the most painful and lonesome experiences that I have been through. But now I understand how to be a boss. And really, I went from going from looking at alternative business models to understanding how to be a loving, benign dictator, really. I have staff of about 15 people, and they don't want to hear how bad your day has been, and they don't want to hear what kind of trauma you're having at home, and ultimately they shouldn't have to hear that stuff. And really, you are there to take care of them, in many ways, to support them into doing the job that they know how best to do. And those were lessons of humanity. Well, friendships can be born, but they're not necessarily made, and neither do they need to be made.